Godzilla, Son of Godzilla.
So that was the last one.
And we've had this meme banner up the entire post because this is the first sight you see of Manila and Godzilla from this, which is horrific for both of them. So I guess we'll start off with it. We're flying over. There's some pilots that run into Godzilla, and he pops up through their window, and this picture is what you see of Godzilla. It is the Astro Monster suit. It is probably the second worst suit that they've ever made. And the reason why it's in this movie is because they just use it for water scenes, because who cares? It's a terrible suit. If it gets destroyed, we don't care. So that's why it's still in this movie. We see it for one more scene after this, and then it's done. And we are going to go over and just transition to our island now and our summer theme of this entire review. So why don't you pick up from here?
Oh yeah, I mean, it opens up after that. We get opening credits, beautiful island, panoramic shots of everything. But anyway, on the island, they're doing an experiment to basically
control the weather
so that they could get weather that they could farm in all year and change unfit environments for farming into environments that they can
so
farm.
Basically, it's the same plot that we've been dealing with forever and dealing with right now, and same thing as Endgame. There's overpopulation. We don't know what we're going to do. Their solution to overpopulation and a food shortage is let's terraform areas that aren't good for farmland. So they're doing this experiment. Our main character, Miko, doesn't crash land. He parachutes down onto the island and is demanding a story from them. Rather funnily, because he will not take off his life preserver.
Yeah.
He's
just there on the island the whole time wearing a life preserver. Like, how long are you going to wear that thing for?
Yeah, he wore it for like 2 scenes, but he has like this like red Hawaiian shirt with like a life preserver on, and he's like, I am not leaving until I get my story. He's like, I know there's something going on here. And they're just like, well, we need a cook. So he's like, okay, I'll be a cook.
Yeah,
as long as I can stay.
Because they're like, you either swim off the island or you stay here and work with us. They're like, there's no way off. So our reporter just becomes part of this crew trying to make farming environments out of this tropical island. They're trying to control the weather. You find out shortly after he gets there, there's giant praying mantis, the Kamacuras.
Yeah, they're like about like 10, 15 feet tall.
They're at this point, they're not the Kamacuras we know. They're like, like you said, 10, 15 feet, maybe even smaller, like man size. Like, somebody could wrestle one down if they wanted, but I wouldn't do it. He goes around, he sees a girl, he explores the island the next day, he sees a girl bathing, swimming. Then he goes to take a picture of her, rock slip, she sees him, disappears.
Yeah, so that's our female lead, Psycho, and they changed her name in the dub, so you might know her as Rika or Rico, depending on which dub you listened to. She is actually an Japanese-American actress, and she's into dancing and all this stuff. She's like still active to this day.
Oh, really?
It's like she was like in like the Japanese like Les Mis. Like, you think of any popular like musical over here in Broadway, and she's been in the Japanese version of it.
Oh.
Yeah, so she's like, but like super hard to find information on her. I had to go to like 3 or 4 different websites and read through career things, because they don't. It's hard with Japanese actresses. There's not a lot of English resources about that. But anyway, let's continue on the plot.
But so basically, they finally run their experiment. What it involves is changing the weather. So they try to set off a storm. Something goes wrong. There's an equipment failure, and it causes a radiation storm for 3 days.
Yeah.
And they're hunkered down in their base. They come out. The island seems fine. Their equipment's all just burnt. They're walking around. And now they run into the Kamacuras again, and now they're the Kamacuras. They're massive.
Yeah, massive kaiju.
Yes.
One thing to note is that there's been this radio signal that they don't know where it's coming from. It's what's drawing Godzilla towards the island, and that's what caused the incident with their equipment.
Yes.
Is this radio interference that they're dealing with? I don't know why their computers run off of radio waves, but they do. I guess that's what they do to send to the radiation thing. I don't know, but it's a plot line.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So they see the Kamacuras, and they're like, "Oh, let's kind of stay away from it," but then we're also going to follow to see where it's going.
Yeah, and then they're like, "Oh, this is the direction that the interference is coming from too," and like they follow the Kamacuras. There's one, then there's three, and they're just all beating on this rock, and boom, there's the egg, and they're like, "Oh, I wonder what's in the egg." Everyone knows what's going to be in the egg.
It's what we see right above our heads right now. I don't know what the thinking was of them making a puppet that looked like this. It was disgusting. It barely worked. I think it brought down the movie.
It really did.
I don't like. I understand like babies aren't really the greatest looking things when they're born because they're covered in like goo and stuff. But like, why put it in your movie for like a kaiju being born? Like, Mothra doesn't look like this when it comes out of the egg.
The egg didn't even really hatch too. The Kamacuras just
Broke
beat
it open.
the hell out of the egg, and they're like, boom, here's baby Godzilla, Manila, Minya.
One of the theories that's like going around about this is because it didn't hatch. That's why 40 years later, on the next movie, which is Destroy All Monsters, Manila hasn't grown at all. It's the same size. Because it didn't develop properly.
Destroy All Monsters is supposed to take place in the year 2000.
I like to think that the Godzilla in that movie is the Manila in this movie, but it's all just fan theory. They don't confirm anything. Yeah. So, luckily, Godzilla comes in, sees them messing around with Manila. He goes completely blast one of them, does the body slam, blast them. He's on fire. And the cool thing about this is they actually set the because they aren't suits. They're just puppets.
Yeah.
They actually just set it on fire.
Yeah, they lit it up.
And then a second one goes by, tries to tackle, misses, flies by again. They do like this little like hockey game because Godzilla throws a rock at him or kicks a rock at him. And they go and they kick it, and you think it's going to hit Godzilla, and it just flies right past Godzilla and just hits Manila in the head and just falls back, which is actually hilarious.
Yeah, they just made like beating on the kid like the comedy point of this movie. For some reason.
Did. They really did. Yeah, you can continue.
Yeah, so Godzilla fights off the Kamacuras, and they kind of take off and like wander the island. I don't know if there's like a time jump or something, or they're like just like was there like they don't acknowledge boom all of a sudden we have a different.
So one thing that they do mention,
like he's at spikes. I don't know.
So I'm just going to transition over to the real overlay of this podcast. One thing that they kind of mentioned, which makes me think that some time has passed, is that the whole time that we're here, we have a character name, which I'm just going to read off real quick, just because Furukawa, he's trying to get off of this island.
Yeah, he's like
he's been trying to escape. He has a mental break.
Done with it the minute the movie started.
He's like, once we get done with this experiment, I want to leave. We should all leave. He keeps trying to rally the crew members. Not that they're going to mutiny, but like he's kind of losing it. Yeah. And they mentioned that they broke the radios so that the crew members couldn't call for help or call for boats to come or anything like that, and kind of force them to do this experiment.
Yeah.
Because the scientist just wants, he believes in the mission. He wants to get this done. So I kind of think by like, we broke the radios. It makes me think some time has passed, whether it's like a couple weeks or something. It makes me think that some time has passed, especially since you have Manila grow so much. I understand it's a kaiju movie for kids.
Even because like, when they show the puppet's just got like almost just like flat, slick back. There's not much going on back there. When we get to these scenes, when he looks like what's above us now, he's got little spikes coming out of his back now. So yeah, I feel like some time had to have passed.
Yeah. And
Um,
if you're looking at the top screen, they did remodel the Godzilla suit for this movie, and it's because they wanted it to look more like Manila, so there would be
and
more of a relation between the two.
yeah, and they also wanted to. I heard they made him a little bulkier too, as a bigger suit
Yeah,
because they wanted
because
to
they want a
look
height
more,
difference.
yeah, height difference, and they wanted to look more paternal. And I
Yeah,
heard they actually had to use two different suit actors
yeah.
because of the size difference. The one actor was too small for the suit.
No, so um, the first actor they hired was a baseball player because he was taller, broke his hand mid
Oh, he
production.
did.
So then that's why they switched over
Oh, I thought
to
one
the
of them
second
was
suit
too small
actor.
for the second suit. All right.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
wow. I didn't
yeah,
know that one. That's a fun fact there.
yeah. No, yeah, he broke his hand mid. So I guess he couldn't do. I don't know why breaking his hand would preclude him from suit acting because I guess he can keep his hand like in one shape, but like I don't know. Doesn't really matter that much.
Suits are heavy too.
They are. They're very very heavy. So maybe getting his hand into it would have been hard or difficult or
Maybe.
painful.
Yeah,
I could see that. Maybe they had to put a
yeah,
giant cast on him or something.
true. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so we got some scenes with Mila. He's grown up now. He's very playful. There's some pretty good comedic scenes here, and we see him by this like fire lake thing.
The warm red water.
Yeah, and the whole time like Psycho's been like feeding him like fruits and stuff and befriending him. So she has a really good repertoire with him, and her and Miko finally meet up. She stole his Hawaiian shirt, so now he has a yellow Hawaiian shirt. And that's kind of where the plot of this movie starts to really kick into gear as far as the human plot and with the monster plot. So we get the famous scene of like Manila shooting the smoke rings and Godzilla stepping on his tail and him having the giant atomic breath, him teaching him how to roar. And on the human side, we get Miku and not Miku, Goro, Maiko's relationship with Seiko's really starting to grow, and she's explaining how she ended up on the island, what happened to her father. She's kind of setting up what this island was and why her father was there, and like the research that there is with it about like the Kamakuras and everything like that. They kind of could just continue doing their own thing for a while, like, and then things start to come to a head when we get into kind of the final fight of this movie, as far as the human plot and the kaiju plot. So I don't know if you want to start off
So
with what happens with the humans.
So yeah, basically, well, when Godzilla showed up on the island, he stormed through their base all as well. So their main base was destroyed. So they've kind of been living out of um, Rico's, Psycho's cave. She had a cave where she stayed with her father, who was a paleontologist, and he was on the island, Solgal Island, during the World War. I don't know if it was World War II. I'm assuming it was World War II. Um, and when she was born, her mother passed away. So just her and her dad. He passed away eventually. He had all notes and whatnot. Notes that often mentioned Spiga, which you soon find out is
Kamungus.
Kamunga, whatever you want to call him. This movie, he's Spiga, the giant spider. Um, and through the movie, you do see some webs on the foliage on the island, but it's not really touched on until this point in the movie. Um, the whole crew, besides the lead professor, his right hand man, and for some reason Seiko and Goro, everyone gets sick but those four. Goro goes out with her to go get the red water where Godzilla and Manila are. Supposedly it's going to heal this mysterious fever. They go there. That whole flame scene ensues, like you mentioned earlier with the atomic ring. And they get the water. They come back, give the guys the water. They're all healed up and good. And meanwhile, what happens?
What happens
Miko,
next is
the Kamacuras start fighting Manila because they corner Miko, because Rico, because she was out just gathering more medicine,
yeah.
and
So
she calls Manila. They start fighting, but they're fighting above the cave that they're in, so the cave starts to collapse.
yeah, and one thing to note is that she does say that fire in her father's notes. He says that the only thing that can affect Kumongus is fire. So that's where they're burning the webs away with lighters and just trying to escape, and that's how they get caught inside the cave because Kumongus is there. Manila comes over, and that's kind of what starts the fight. It's a three-way fight between Kumongus, Kamacuras, the one that's left, and Manila. So Kamacuras kind of gets like the like Worf syndrome, where it's like we want to show that you're not really that bad, so we're gonna have Kumongus take you out. And Kumongus is apparently like one of the strongest kaiju in the entire world, because dude eats like serious punishment. Blind, like he takes like what, like 5 or 6 atomic breaths, and it like barely does anything to him.
Manila blasts him with a ring. I think Godzilla hits him a couple times, and Manila hits him.
And he's webbed up both of them.
Yeah, he's webbed them all up.
Sometimes they've been both down.
Yeah.
Godzilla rallies, but like between the poison and the webs, which
I think so. So this whole fight's going on, and meanwhile, the professor's like, you know what? We're gonna get off this island, and to neutralize them, we're gonna complete our experiment. So they're like, apparently, this whole time they've been repairing their equipment. So they set off the experiment to cause a snowstorm. It's successful. Yes. So it starts snowing. They're escaping the island. They're all fighting. And I think if not for the snow, I don't know what would have happened. Because the snow, obviously, insects, they freeze up in the snow. So I think it slowed Kumonga down. So Godzilla and Manila were both able to simultaneously hit them with full atomic breath.
We get the father-son Kamehameha.
Yeah.
And just, again, Kumonga just explodes.
Straight to the face the whole time.
Yeah.
He's just getting smacked in the face with fire breath, too.
And just absolutely explodes when that double atomic breath hits him.
Yeah, just like gets lit
Finally
up.
Does something to
on
him.
Fire.
I'm like watching this movie, and like I guess I'm used to like newer Godzilla movies, where mainly in the MonsterVerse ones, where it's like when you see that atomic breath, it's usually like the final blow or like one of the final blows.
Yeah.
And like in this one, he's just doing it nonstop. Like I understand in the Heisei movies too, like he would have like beam clashes and things like that, but the power scaling in that universe was so crazy as compared to a giant spider. But I guess giant spiders really are terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, like it had like not a scratch on it. Every time I got hit with these beams, we're just getting in the face.
Just
but then at the end, it was like, boom, we're gonna light this guy on fire.
And he like blinds Godzilla, shoots him in the face with like a spike, like crazy.
He blinds him. Yeah.
So anyway, they escape the island. Kumonga's dead, and Manila and Godzilla, they can't escape the cold. So Manila falls down. It's actually a pretty sweet scene. Godzilla turns around, gives him a hug, and they just kind of freeze.
Yeah. They're hibernating.
Yeah. They're very clear to say that, because at the end of the movie, they're like, oh, you know, Seiko's like, oh, you know, I feel so bad. What happened to him? And Goro is very clear in saying, oh, and apparently he's a Godzilla expert, of course. That didn't kill them. They're hibernating till the snow melts, so they should be awake soon. Don't you worry, kids.
I mean, it does look pretty dark at the end. Like
very dark.
Like Manila looks like he's dying, but they are reptiles. They're cold blooded, so it's what happens in the winter with reptiles. They do hibernate when it gets cold. So I think it looked like Manila was just passing out at the end there.
Yeah. That's basically the end of the movie. I thought going into this, I hadn't watched this movie for I think at least 8 years, and it's one of those things where you kind of forget. It's long enough that you start to forget things in the movie, and you remember the bad suit, you remember the jarring Godzilla scenes. I feel like you remember the bad stuff. But watching the movie,
Oh, there's a lot of
it's
good.
probably one of like the better stories as far as on the
Yeah,
human side. Like I actually cared about the human plot because the
yeah,
characters were very interesting. You had the psycho storyline. You have the storyline between the two scientists, and then you have the crazed crew member that like has like four or five like grabbing a gun. I'm gonna shoot you all. They overpower him. He has a
yeah.
fever type of like. There's a lot of stuff going on that human plot
Yeah.
line, but not confusing like the Heisei human
They,
storylines.
yeah, they managed a good storyline, but they also kept it simple enough too,
Yes,
which
very
is
easy to follow.
like I don't know if it's been 8 years. It's I'd say maybe 5 years for me since I did my last full Godzilla rewatch of everything. So it was sort of fairly new again. I don't remember this movie, but the way I felt watching it, I don't remember this movie being as good as I thought it was when I watched it this time. Like I felt like this, it was really good.
Yeah,
Like,
I really liked it. I
and I
thought
feel like it should.
it's
This movie, like when everyone talks Godzilla movies, like this one is definitely.
one of the
I
low
feel
tier
like
ones.
it's definitely low tier, and
The suits
I
aren't the
feel like it should.
greatest,
I
but
feel like it should kind of be up there story wise, though.
storyline, I'd say it's probably one of the top
Yeah,
ones.
yeah.
And I feel like the fans, what they harp on are the terrible suits and the lackluster villains. Okay, Kamungus and Kamakuris aren't the most.
You know
It's a
what?
giant spider and giant praying mantis.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what people harp on. But if you just look at the story and the things that are in here and like the awesome setting, yes, it's a lower budget Godzilla movie, but
It's one
you
of the
can even
lowest.
see in like the reviews, like critic reviews, it's still pretty good. It's fresh. Yes, I want to Rotten Tomatoes for this. It's fresh. It's but you look at the fan reviews, it's like 30%.
Yeah, I
The
don't
fan
know if
reviews for this movie are so much lower than the critic
I don't know if it's
reviews,
just because people hate
which
Manila.
is usually the opposite for Godzilla movies. Usually
Yeah.
the fans love it, the critics hate it, and I felt like people don't pay attention to the plot and what's actually going on in this movie,
I
and they're
think
just like,
people-
the
yeah.
fight's not great, it's lackluster villains, the suits look disgusting. What happened here?
I feel like you need to look at this movie like a I don't know what do you call it, like a Mystery Island, Stranded on an Island movie, more than a Godzilla movie. And what I liked about it is that, like I said, they kept it simple, and sometimes the simple villains are perfect. I thought Kamakuris is fine, Kumunga's fine, Spiga, whatever you want to call them. Um, yeah, simple works sometimes. I mean, the movie that was released prior to this for a Godzilla movie was Ibra Heart of the Deep. It's a giant lobster. I mean, simple.
Shrimp.
Simple.
But yes.
Giant shrimp, yes, giant shrimp. Simple. Sometimes simple makes for great. I mean, I would love to see a movie like this made, but I don't think I'm thinking, the Skull Island anime might be the closest thing we get to
I think
an
so too.
island movie. I really like the whole island vibe of the thing.
I
There's
think
some
that-
mystery to the island.
I think in
There's
this
always
day,
something to be discovered.
an island plot like this or like smaller monsters or something, it's something you're going to see in a TV show. It's
Yeah,
not something you're going to see on a
unfortunately.
movie because
Yeah.
the budgets for these movies have to be so big now because if they don't go all out, the fans aren't going to go all out and they're not going to spend money on it, or they're going to pan it for not being the greatest thing they've ever seen.
I know it stinks at how everyone's just such a stickler nowadays with every movie. Nobody's ever happy with anything. I just love a nice simple island movie, and it was even the music was great in this movie too.
Really good.
Good soundtrack, great soundtrack,
Yeah, it's
it's interesting because this was considered the secondary. This was the B
Yeah.
team kaiju movie of the year.
yes.
So this wasn't done by Honda. This was the second movie in a row done by Jun Fukuda, and Sadamasa Arakawa was the special effects. He was Sosabayoru's protege. They did Ibrahar of the Deep as well. Sobayaru had more involvement with Ibrahar of the Deep the previous year, but when they were working on this, Honda and Tosabayaru were working on King Kong Escapes.
Yeah.
That was their A-list. That was going to be their premiere movie for that year. And the
Yeah.
previous year, they were working on War of Gargantuas, and that's
Yeah.
why we got Ibrahar of the Deep.
So for this movie, Subaraya does get a. He's not the director of special effects. He's like a consult. He's the consultant.
He sort of stepped in every now and then to help out when he wasn't working on
But like,
King Kong
yeah, and
Escapes.
he's basically just
Yeah.
out of respect, they put his name on it,
Yeah.
but not.
But hey, for what they would call the B team or the second string team, I think they did a great job.
I think it's better than Kong Escapes. I mean,
I've seen Kong Escapes a couple times.
I've seen it 2 months ago.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I like this one so much better.
yeah.
I'd watch this one again before I'd watch Kong Escapes.
Yeah.
Might be controversial. I love me some Doctor Who and some Mechanic Kong, but this was a better story to me.
Yeah.
It really was.
Oh, it is. It is. And
Better vibes too.
I just love the whole setting, too. I love the island feel of it.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's some beautiful shots in the opening scenes. Even throughout the movie, they give you some cool beach scenes, and yeah, I think they shot a lot of it in Guam. Actually,
I wouldn't be surprised. I know that there's some studio stuff. So on the second body slam on the Kamakuris, about 34 minutes into the movie, you can see the studio lights because this camera's panning up to get the height of Kamakuris. And you can see like the stage where they have like the wires and like the stage lights.
yeah.
So like some of it's on location, some of it's studio, and you can see the shots between like the humans and the monsters as always is composited in.
Yeah. And I watched the Criterion Blu-ray. So this was my first time seeing it in HD too.
Yes.
And I felt like the sky background, like you could see like the lines for the backdrop sometimes.
So I was seeing that too, but I thought it was an error with the Criterion collection.
Oh yeah?
Probably because I've never seen the movie in HD.
Yeah,
I was like, now I'm thinking about it. I'm like, they're either lines on the set or they're like the wires for the Kamakuris.
Yeah.
But I'm like seeing that and I'm like, oh man, Criterion, you really dropped the ball on this. But now, like thinking about it, like today, I was actually thinking about it today. I'm like, those probably wasn't a problem with the Criterion collection.
That's the problem with making some of these older movies high definitions. Some of this set stuff just stands out now. Like back in the day, the picture wasn't as great. You couldn't see it, so they're like, oh, boom, we're fine. We don't need to touch that up. Whatever, there's a line there, they're not going to see that. Now it's cleaned up and sharpened up. We could see a lot more than we did back in the day. It looked great, though, still. It looked
I really liked it.
Yeah.
And at an 85-minute runtime, I thought it was the perfect length. I felt like the story never dragged, and it just was very well paced. Kept me engaged the entire time. Sometimes you get these kaiju movies, and I know there's a lot of people that are like huge fans of them, or these are classics. I love them. Sometimes they drag in the middle. They really do.
Yeah.
A lot of the Heisei ones, they kind of like in the middle, they start to drag a little, and you're like, what's going on right now? So I felt like this was very well paced, as long as it needed to be.
Yes.
This was not a Song of Kong where they wrapped everything up in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Where they're like, oh, we didn't have the budget for this, and this and that. That was Son of Kong. And they're like, this was supposed to be a quickie.
Yeah, this was a good one. I was definitely feel like
super
it's a good
better
one.
than Son of Kong.
Yes, super better. But yeah, I watched the Criterion English dub with Japanese. I thought it was really good. It was a really easy watch, and I'd recommend watching it that way. There are some funny things in the English dub, so if you want to go back and watch the English dub, watch the English dub. But especially for ease of watching too, English dub's always there. Always, we tout English dubs on this podcast. We don't shun them. So
yeah, I mean, I watch subtitled all the time. But yeah, I like I prefer the dubs though for movies just because it's easier watching.
Dude, so when I want to turn my brain off and I just want to watch something and enjoy it,
Yeah, yeah,
I watch the dub.
dub, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I believe the Criterion was the first. This dub was unique to Criterion. The previous releases, I believe they were called. I don't know what that dub was called. I believe it was called like the Walter dub or something like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's the one where you get the Spiga. It's not. They didn't even go Spiga. They go Spiga on that one.
I have a guy I work with.
Yeah.
He's like one of the delivery guys, and he see my Godzilla shirts every now and then, and he loves this movie. He's always talking Spiga. He's is his favorite monster. He goes on about it. He just bought like this big, massive, like huge Ghidorah statue. He's seen this thing's like 3 feet tall. I don't know which one it
Wow.
is, but I'm like, oh, apparently he really is a hardcore fan. But he always has to talk to me about Spiga. When he saw for Godzilla vs. Kong, when the legs were coming out in that first trailer, he's like, Spiga's going to be in King Kong vs. Godzilla.
I mean, it basically was.
Yeah, yeah. There was
I mean,
a spider thing, man.
they just why would you, they're just like why would you license the name of a giant spider?
Yeah,
Just put a giant spider in a movie.
yeah, yeah,
They can't do anything about it.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, that's the review. Thank you guys for watching. Next podcast, we're going to be doing Space Amoeba.
Or Yog Monster from
Yeah, or
space,
Yog Monster.
whatever you want to call it.
Thank you for saying that because I'm like, I forgot the English name of that movie.
Yeah, Space MOBA, Amoeba.
Yeah, so super
Yeah.
excited for that one. That's
Another
going to be
Beachy
my.
movie.
That's going to be really going to be my first time watching that movie. I've seen it before, but I was like, I wasn't super paying attention. It was just on in the background type of deal.
I've watched it a few times. It's definitely up there as one of my favorites.
Yeah.
It's a later movie too. I believe it might be one of Honda's last movies that he did for Toho for as a kaiju movie for a kaiju movie.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that. And I
Yeah.
think it's going to be a good podcast. Yeah.
Man,
So
by then maybe we'll see what Ultraman Day brought for us and everyone. So
yeah, by then we should have some more news and definitely going to be covering more of probably the was it ENT releases that Kong
INT.
INT. Yeah, we'll probably be covering a little bit more of those by then because more of them will be coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're pumping out movies.
Yeah. So thanks you guys for watching, and we will see you guys
See you
next
week.
time.
Or
Bye.
next time.
Bye.